Morning, guys. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new, welcome. Okay, so today is the third lesson of Back to Basics. It's not really a lesson, it's more of a recap of the first two. So today we're going to make two simple projects that will require you to obviously cast on and cast off in both methods that we seen together. So one will require waste yarn, one will not, and then we will have color changes going on, and we can then test all three methods of color changing. You will also be required to, in one of the projects, to close the flat edge and then assembling. So basically we are doing two headbands. I will give you the recipe that you will need to follow. Bear in mind that in any recipe, if the use of the waste yarn is not specified, then it, it, it is not required. In other recipes, you might find that is obviously specified, so it will tell you to cast on with waste yarn. Or in some others, it might just tell you to cast on with waste yarn is no. So that to give you a hint on how to follow the recipe. Let's start with the first project, and this is the recipe that you need to follow. Choose whatever combination of yarn you wish. Remember, the thickness of yarn is either DK or Aran yarn. I'm using today DK yarn. Okay, let's do it together. So first of all, you choose your first color and we cast on. Remember to that the cast on in this project number one is not counted as a row. Speaking of row counters, if you're wondering what this is exactly it. This is a row counter I have installed on my 40 needle pin machine, and this is what I'm using today. You can use it, you can use any machine you wish. Today I'm using the 40. So I'm not gonna go through in depth on how to cast on. We've seen that in the first video. So if you need to refer back, go back and watch that again. Today is just a craft along, covering the basics. Now we grab the second color of yarn. Second and last color change. And this is our finished row. Now we need to cast off. Okay, now that we have our project off of the machine, the last few steps that we need to take to finish it off is to stretch the fabric, cinch the ends. When you cinch the ends, make sure that hope you can see it. When you cinch the ends, the inside will come out. So just straighten the edges and make sure that the pearl side stays inside. It will make more sense once you do it because you can see it yourself. Now we need to secure the two ends so they don't come undone. And to secure the two ends, just um, pull on the tail, not too hard because you don't want to break the yarn, and just retrace a couple of stitches just so that it doesn't come undone. Okay. Keep your tail because it will help you to then connect the two sides. Now what I like to do in this case is grab the two tails, tie a knot, tie another knot, cut a little bit of your tails if they are too long like my one, just to make it more manageable. Then with both strands, I'll just secure the two sides together. And by using the two strands together, obviously you can put a little bit more pressure and pull a little bit more tight. And once you have that secured, just add a wee knot. Hide your tails inside your project. Spin your project around. And this is the first headband. Now, for an adult, I would actually add another 10 rows to the count. This is more suitable for teens or young adults. But then, again, I guess it depends also on each single person. I've seen adults with smaller heads. I have a big head, so this might be too small for me. But and this is the finished product. Once you get to this point, then you can leave it as is or add decorations to it, maybe something in the center or anything like that. But with this project, we covered the cast on, the simple method of cast on, and we covered the simple method of color changing. So as you can see, you don't need to have any major knowledge of any specific techniques to get started and to have fun. Okay, so let's go with project number two. With project number two, we will cover waste yarn, a flat edge closure, and with the color changing, we are gonna use the other two methods. So the knit two color change and the slip stitch color change. This is the recipe for the next project. Okay, so just to recap before we start with this project, this second project we are covering waste yarn, flat closure, the other two ways of changing colors, so the knit to change color technique and the slip stitch color technique. And we will also use the that we trick that we learned in lesson number two to remove the waste yarn quicker. So let's get started. Remember, waste yarn is not part of the row count. You will only reset and start counting your rows once you start working with your working yarn. Now remember, knit two, meaning that you need to make sure when you reach your number one needle and you have your new collar sticking out, you need to hold your loop around the two pegs of the old collar because they need to stay down. The tail comes up underneath the hook and you knit the tail with the working yarn. So you're knitting two strands of yarn together. Now we change again, and once again we repeat the same technique. Now we are gonna do the slip stitch technique. So remember, you get to the needle number one, and in this case, needle number one will not knit the working yarn, so you will put the working yarn behind, but it still needs to knit something, so you're pulling up the loop. Make sure that you apply attention to the working yarn, and the working yarn goes underneath these bumpers. One last time. back with the working yarn and pull up the loop. Okay, this is the project done. So now what we're gonna do is add again our string of yarn that will allow us to remove the waste yarn quicker. And then waste yarn. Now, once again, first of all, what you want to do is get your tails of the waste yarn and start and end of your project out of the tube and gently stretch the fabric Before we go anywhere and we do anything else, we need to adjust the the color changing knots. So we need to secure the yarn. Let's start this. So take it slowly when you're doing this and keep checking your stitches because you don't want to compromise the shape of them. So these two were the knit to color change, and you can barely see. Right, let's go further, and this is the slip stitch technique. And one more. Okay, now that we have done that, before we go any further, we need to fold the tube in half. So grab your crochet hook, grab your stitch markers, locate your first and last stitch of your working yarn, count your half, and now weave in your stitches, alternating top to bottom. Again, this is a wrap up, guys, so if you're unsure, you need to go back and check the first lesson for this technique. Let's remove the waste yarn so we can check and make sure that we have not missed any stitch. If we did, then I'll show you how we can correct that. And remember, the reason why I'm picking at this stitch is just to allow an easier pull. Okay. Now, let's make sure we haven't missed anything. No, seems good to me. So now we repeat the same process on the other side. Make sure that you have your tube flat. So once again, locate your first and last stitch. count your half, and join together. Perfect. Now we need to finish our project, and we can make a W closure. And the way to do that, first of all, we can hide this tail, but it's too short to do anything with it. So the way you finish it off is you grab the two ends and you fold them in half like this, and then you put one corner inside the middle of the other side like this. Okay, then you grab whatever is left of your tail. In this case it's not much, but we don't need to do much with it. And if you didn't leave enough tail, that's not a problem. You can still sew it together by grabbing a new strand of yarn, and you just sew it together with nothing fancy, just a slip stitch. The only thing I'll advise you to do is make sure that you stay and grab the first row of stitches, just because otherwise it will become very bulky on your head and it will not look right. So just stay at the very top edge. Once you get to the end, tie a knot, hide the yarn, fold it the other way around, and this is the second project done. You have it. So I hope you enjoyed this. Again, this is just a recap of the techniques that we covered in lesson number 1 and 2. Reason why I didn't want to go into too much um, verbal instructions. If you are unsure of what we did, just go back and review the parts that you need to um, then you need a refresher on it. But as you can see, it doesn't take much to have fun with this machine right away. Once you know how to cast on, once you know the difference on when to use waste yarn and when not to use it, and you learn how to color change, then you can apply this to pretty much anything. This could have been a hat, easy. And when you do a hat, maybe this type of color change is better, because then obviously you don't see the jog, this step that the color change, the normal color change creates. So play with it, practice these techniques, and you will soon enough know yourself which one to use, when to use it. There is no right or wrong way of doing things. Well, in a way there is, but in this case, we've learned techniques that you will, with practice, understand and know yourself when to use one or the other based on what you are planning to achieve. So I hope you had fun like I did. And again, once again, thank you for being with me so far. If you haven't done so, please subscribe to the channel. You know the drill. I will leave all the links in the description box below. If you have any questions, please drop a comment. And I shall see you soon. Thank you again, and bye.